we're going to ask you, oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for whoever started the recording. But yeah, cool. Systems design interview is just, they'll say, hey, we want you to make a web server, not actually make a web server, but design a web server that can do a very small problem. And then you have to mostly talk about stuff like how it works via, like how does it communicate, so HTTP calls, but then also how does it store data, so database stuff. Honestly, it's not as hard as I'm saying it to be, but there's like, you don't have to do a single piece of code. You just have to like talk with them and maybe write stuff down. Was it worth it? Yes. It was like, I got to work in the identity department. So like, if you log in or if you like have a bot and you need to like have permissions, how you allow permissions with your account. That's my job within Atlassian. If you don't know what Atlassian does, they make Jira, Confluence. They're used by quite a lot of tech companies. So like Apple, I think, is the big one they like to like show off. The pay in Sydney I got offered was really good, but like they called me up, well, not called me up, but they hit me up and were like, hey, are you still keen to go to Sydney? And like Sydney was like having peak rates of COVID. And I'm like, no. So then say, oh, that's okay. We'll give you a New Zealand offer instead. But the New Zealand offer is like not as good. It's still pretty competitive compared to other New Zealand companies, just not compared to the big bucks from Sydney, I ended up getting a grad offer. So I'm probably going to Sydney after this year. But for now, I will be continuing on as part-time. So they did give me that option because I do like money. What I did was, it was mostly Java work. So I think the fact that I did know Java did help to land that job, but I also did a little bit of JavaScript in AWS. Keep in mind, I am a backend intern. Atlassian's backend is mostly Java, a bit of Kotlin, tiny bit of Go and Python. But then like if you were in front end, JavaScript would be key, like React and JavaScript. What like my experience was, there was tons of meetings, which I hate meetings. It's remote as well. So like you can't avoid meetings, especially face-to-face. But I got to collaborate with a ton of different people. My team alone had someone from Sydney, someone from Melbourne, someone from America, and me from Auckland. Like there was a lot of very weird time zone stuff, but it was fun. And like I had situations where people in my company, like full-time people from like the Indian office, was like messaging me about certain features that I implemented, and that was awesome. It also made me a person who like goes to a lecture and keeps their camera on, because it's broken me. It's the person I hated the most, but I've become that person. Also, tons of testing, documentation, feature flags, log inspection, and metric gathering. So like people are like, why is software engineering considered an engineering? And honestly, degree-wise, computer science and software engineering are pretty similar. But like, why would you call it an engineering? Would be like this type of stuff: testing, documentation, feature flags, etc., etc. A lot of like communicating between your teams and like your customer or like your stakeholder, or whatever you call it. Yeah, it definitely made me understand why it was called that. Also, I got a ton of support. So like I had a buddy, they gave me a buddy, a mentor, and a manager, and my whole team in general was pretty supportive. Like my manager found out I liked anime and was like suggesting that be a new social activity for the whole team. It was a bit wholesome, but like that was a weird thing. Okay, so the summer before that, I got the pleasure of working at Silo. Silo is kind of like a medium, small. It's on the small end of medium size company. It's old enough to not be a startup, but it still has a startup vibes. They make I gave the description here, but it's basically like an app which lets you message, but also send cryptocurrency to other people. I personally wasn't that into cryptocurrency when I joined, but I did learn stuff like how blockchains work, and I got to do it all in person, which is great. Like the previous one, I was in New Zealand, so remote. It was a bit isolating, but like in person is so much nicer because you get to talk to them face to face. Like jokes are easier to say because you're actually you can actually see, I don't know, their behavior when you say it to them. All my supervisors were like geniuses. Well, I only had, yeah, they were geniuses in their field. They were really smart, like insanely smart. Also, because you're in the office and everyone's having a good time, like Friday evening would basically be like drinking plus dog. One of the employees would bring their dog in. Like it was mostly it was a puppy, but like it was big enough to be caught. Yeah, it was a big puppy. And that was my favorite perk. But how did I like get that job? Get that offer? I emailed them, and people are scared to cold email companies, but especially the smaller companies, they might not have a full-on internship thing planned. And so they don't consider that people would be interested in emailing them until, considered interested in interning for them until you actually email them. And a lot of companies might end up going, sorry, we don't want an intern in the end, but they're not gonna like feel like, they're not going to see you in a bad light. They'll see you in like a damn, this person's onto it and like sliding into people's emails to like ask for internships. That's like a good thing. You should like consider it, especially if there's a company that you want to join, but like you haven't seen any opportunity for you to intern there. After that, it was an interview. The interview was like super easy. It was like so chill, like 40 minutes, but like we just talked about random stuff. It was mostly me talking and then just nodding. Then they barely asked me questions. I just was talking. It was honestly a fun chat, basically. The take-home test was in Go for me, but I was there for like a back-end kind of thing. They mostly hire front-end people, and that's like JavaScript, React Native. Cool. So I will hand it over to Bev.
Cool. So this summer I interned at Google. So I'll just go through the application process first. So right now the STEP and SWE internship applications are open. So STEP internships are for pre-penultimate students. So I think if you're a comp sci first year or a soft eng second year, you're eligible for that. And SWE is for penultimate students, and that's what I was. Those are for second year comp sci students and third year soft eng students. So yeah, just apply now. And if you're concerned about cover letters, because they ask for a cover letter, just like you don't have to submit one. I don't actually think that they read them because I didn't submit one and I still got through. So if you're concerned about that, you really don't have to be. Just don't submit a cover letter. But yeah, so applications are open, and I think come April, there will be an online challenge that everyone gets sent out, which is basically 2 algorithm questions, basically maybe lead code easy / medium-ish. And I solved one with optimization and one without, and that was enough to get me through. So you don't have to finish both of them with optimization. I think they just want at least one of them. At least that's what I've gathered. Then after that, in around May, you get your interviews. So your recruiter will reach out to you. I think it'll be Vanessa Page, and she'll schedule 2 interviews with you. With other people working at Google. And they will be 2 45-minute technical interviews, probably around lead code medium level. And they like their dynamic programming questions as well. So it's probably going to be dynamic programming. So if you have specific questions that you want to practice, it should probably be dynamic programming questions. But the experience with interviewing, the interviewers were really, really nice. It was kind of a very pleasant experience. And with the interviews, they're not really looking for you to come up with a final solution. Obviously, it'd be nice to, but a lot of it's just seeing if you have the problem-solving skills and able to ask questions, clarifying questions on the interview question as well. That's what they're kind of looking for, besides you completing the question. Yeah, so after that, in around June, Google has this hiring committee that they have where they meet and discuss your application, like your whole application, which includes your CV, your interview performance, all of that stuff. and they reach a decision on whether to bring you forward to the next stage or not. So at this point, you're not actually doing anything, you're just waiting for them to make a decision. And if they do decide to carry you forward, then they will send out a questionnaire for your project preferences and your skills. That's so that they can find a project that might match, that might fit you. And if they do, then later on in around July-ish, they will schedule some host matching calls with you, with the project supervisors. So you can get 0 to 3 host matching calls. So if you don't get any and they don't find a project that aligns with you, then that's just kind of the end of the process, and it's hard luck you didn't get an internship. And this is like where a lot of people might not make it through, because there are either no projects or the project's not a mutual fit between you and the host, because those calls are just to see if it is a mutual fit between you and the host, and if the host would like to take you on for the project. Yeah, so after that, after you finish those calls, if you do get one, then you get an offer at around late July. You don't have to accept right away. I didn't. So if you have other offers lined up, so you don't have to be pressured to accept. So I had around a week to decide, and obviously I accepted. Yeah, that's the application process. If we move on to my experience at Google, Hiru. Cool, thank you. So my internship started at the end of November, and like most of the city internships this year, like here at Atlassian, it was work from home because of COVID. So we didn't actually get to see the really cool office. But I did manage to briefly visit the Auckland office when I had to return my monitor. So that was kind of nice. It obviously wasn't as nice as the Sydney office, I probably think, but it was nice all the same. But anyway, since we're all work from home, all the interns got deliveries from Google. So we got like a whole bunch of Google swag, cookies and ice cream, cocktail making kits, and boomerang for boomerang painting night. So it was quite neat getting like random packages show up at your door. Yeah, in terms of what I did at Google, I worked as a front-end developer in NetSoft. And what NetSoft is that they work on Google's internal infrastructure. So you won't actually get to see any of my work in public anywhere, but you know, it's there. Yeah, so I worked on the front end of a network planning editor, and I was working in Polymer, which is a JavaScript framework. I learned that on the job. It's quite straightforward. But yeah, just like I knew JavaScript, so picking up Polymer wasn't a big deal. And not all teams do this, but I also had daily stand-ups with my team to talk about, you know, what we've been up to, any issues that we're having, what we're going to be working on. And my team was really, really supportive. It was a team of around 6 people, I think. So they really made me feel like a part of the team, and they're always very, very happy to help. And after each stand-up, I also had a daily one-on-one with my host to talk about my project, which was really useful. It was a great opportunity to ask questions about my project and any troubles I'm having and any issues I'm having. Yeah, so that was really nice. But yeah, it was overall a really, really great experience. You know, you can really feel the company culture even through the screen. But yeah, if none of that actually matters to you, the pay is also really good. So I highly recommend applying. Yeah, I think the pay is slightly more than Atlassian and other Sydney companies, except for the trading companies, but they're OP. Yeah, so if you have any questions about Google, feel free to ask at the end of this event or DM me on Discord or something. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, that was my experience. And the previous summer, I was interning at Wincave, which is a small payments company in New Zealand, but you might have seen them everywhere. They have like a lot of payment terminals around New Zealand. So if you go to the shops or the parking lot, you probably see their logo. And they also have that payment portal that you might see when you online shop. So yeah, they're kind of everywhere. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's changed since I applied, but for a software developer intern, they require a GPA of 8 or above. At least that's what was required when I applied. But I don't know, you may as well apply anyway. Like you don't lose anything by applying if you have like a 7.8 or 7.9. So yeah. So I applied in around October of, I think it must have been 2020. Yeah. And when they came onto campus, and I just emailed the recruiter my CV. Like I had a chat with them and then emailed her. And I think now they come during Careers Expo. I'm not sure when Careers Expo is, but when it happens, be sure to have a talk with them. And then I think you also still have to send through your CV. But yeah, after I sent through my CV, I got scheduled for an interview. And honestly, it was really, really chill. They asked me a few technical questions, but it wasn't really anything algorithmic at all. I don't think I could have studied for it at all, really, except for maybe a little bit of C++, but they didn't really ask much C++ either. And I got to ask some questions myself, which was nice. So the interview process only took like 30 to 40 minutes. And I just walked into the office and walked out after 40 minutes. Yeah. Then after that, I guess I got through to the next stage, and they sent me a take-home test to do in C++. And there were around 4 problems. I think it was 4 problems, and they progressively got harder. So it was stuff like refactoring code, which was like really easy, and a little bit of multi-threading, which required some research. But yeah, I managed. And it took a few hours to complete, and then you kind of submit it and email your solution back to the recruiter. And then after a week, I got an offer. Yeah, which was really cool. So the whole application process only took around 3 weeks, which is so short compared to Google, which was like from April all the way to late July. So yeah, that's one of the advantages of applying for New Zealand companies, is that it's a much faster turnaround period from when you apply to the offer. But when I started working at WinCave, I worked on my own project to develop the C# wrapper around the REST API for a client that wanted like an SDK instead of like directly interacting with the REST API. So I learned C# on the job, and it had nothing to do with my C++ take-home test. But yeah, C# is very nice to use. I prefer it over Java. Yeah, so after I did that project, because I finished it before I ended my internship, I got to work on a shopping cart extension in the last few weeks of my internship. That was also in C#. Yeah, so yeah, I didn't need to learn anything new there. So yeah, overall, a pretty good experience. I learned a lot. I spent so long on the C# docs, so I learned all about C#. And it was all in person, so it was cool walking around the office and actually seeing some of the embedded stuff as well, because they make everything in-house, so you could see all the terminals and like vending machines that were like half taken apart. Yeah, so that was really cool to have. Yeah, I'm not sure how many internships are in person now. I think the New Zealand ones are mostly in person. But yeah, if you have a chance to have an in-person internship, do it, because it's much better than work from home. Yeah, that's all for WinCave.
Sweet. Hi. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about some research scholarships. You guys might have heard of them. They are essentially 10-week programs offered by the university. And the basic premise of it is buddy up with a lecturer and do some research together. So that research is pretty loosely defined, and often, especially in the I guess like software engineering or computer science departments, it's just really like, hey, I've got this thing that I think's cool. Do you want to come help me develop it? Yeah, sweet, awesome. So the main way people get that, well, the main way people apply for that is they Google it, they go to the webpage, and it's super easy to apply. It's like applying for a standard university scholarship. And yeah, and that's pretty good. The lecturers then pick people somewhat based on their applications and somewhat based off of what they know about them from class and that kind of stuff. Since, like if you apply to Google, you can't really go up to one of the recruitment people and be like, hey, how are you going? Nice to meet you. This is my name. This is what I'm studying. But you can really do that with
with like some research scholarship. Like you talk to the lecturers after class or whatever, and they get to know you, and then your name pops up in an application. They go, yeah, I know this person. Yeah, I'll definitely hire them. So that's like one of the main ways people get hired. I went a slightly different path. I applied for all the summer research scholarships. I applied for all the summer of tech things. I applied for everything and failed miserably at all of them. I did not get a single job. Later on, however, after all of the internships had already gone, one of my lecturers posted on a class piazza, hey, we're still looking for someone to get this job. Well, we forgot to like put it up. I know it's a little bit late notice. And I think probably like half the class applied because everyone was still struggling for internships. And yeah, so that was actually a pretty easy application process. It was essentially just applying through the lecturer, just emailing them your CV and portfolio and I guess supporting documents, and then going into an interview. For my interview, there were 3 people. There was the lecturer I would technically be researching under. There was the, I guess, tech lead, and someone from a entirely separate department. But for the sake of argument, effectively someone from HR. And they asked me a series of questions. If you get asked questions in an interview, take careful note of the questions, because the questions aren't only a tool for the interviewers to get to know you, but it's also a tool for you to get to know the actual like work, what it's going to be like. If they ask, how are you with dealing with high pressure, high stress situations, then it means it's going to be really hard work and you've got to be good at this. If they ask you, you know, no, whatever they ask you, it's always going to be a reflection of the actual work. So I went for the interview because I got an email saying that got to the interview stage. I was super excited. And looking up on that development team, I saw that they had done some stuff in React previously. So I thought, oh, okay, I need to learn React. I've got to be ready. I've got to be prepped. So I spent like a week learning React, being like, oh, okay, I think I got my head around hooks. Okay, sweet. I got this. Let's go. Showed up at the interview, and walking out of the interview was one of my friends who had just been to the same interview as me. And I'm like, oh yeah, man, I learned React. I really prepped. He came out and said, nope, actually it's Angular. I had heard that Angular existed, but I did not know anything about Angular. So I very, very quickly reached for my phone, went to YouTube and fired up a Fireship IO video, one of those 2-minute, like Angular in 100 seconds. Put it on 2 times speed and stood outside the interview door going, okay, Angular is, okay, I think I got it. Just to make sure I knew a few words and a few things about Angular. And heard the interviewer like saying, oh yeah, I think our next candidate should be here shortly. So I'll quickly put my phone away, take my headphones out. Hi, how you going? I'm Etienne, nice to meet you, etc, etc, etc. Oh, you're using Angular? Yeah, I've heard of Angular. I haven't really used it much in the past, but yeah, I think it's really cool, and there's, yeah, I know some stuff about it, I guess. And it was a little bit stressful because I didn't know too much, and that's fine. You don't have to know everything, because I mean, realistically, you're going into an internship, right? You're not going to become a like senior developer. And I think all the companies really know that it's half of it is a job and the other half is a learning opportunity. Yeah, it's effectively a mini apprenticeship. So you don't have to know everything, and they know that. So that's fine. You definitely can learn on the job, as both Beverly and Hiru said. So in the interview, I got asked a bunch of those questions, and afterwards, my I guess current boss asked me. Well, sorry, I asked him about like what were the aspects that were like good about my interview. And he essentially said that the 2 main things were that I had a decent portfolio, and because there wasn't any like coding interview or lead code challenge or hacker rank or anything like that, they just looked at my previous work and really just looked into one project, which was the first project on my GitHub page, and they like that, and also the, I guess, soft answers about how I'd work with the rest of the team. A lot of the other people, when asked if there was a confrontation in the workplace, apparently answered that they'd be, I guess, a bit more aggressive and like try win in the confrontation. And they were more looking for someone who was saying, you know, I'm an intern, I don't know what I'm doing. You guys know what you're doing. I'm out. And then if really, if me as an intern had a better design or something like that, that would come out through the user testing rather than through me saying, no, I will win. And yeah, so next thing is I started this by going to one of the offices, meeting with my supervisor and saying, hi, yeah, cool, I've got a desk out there, sweet, yep, cool, I'll see you. Went to the desk and twiddled my thumbs for a few days while waiting for access to the code base, and while nothing was really happening, nothing was really getting sorted. So in the first few days, I was just kind of learning Angular, which, you know, I now know that I was supposed to be learning beforehand. So we used three main things. So I was a front-end developer, so I was using Angular, which is a Google front-end framework, which makes it pretty quick and pretty easy to develop stuff. Ionic, which is a tool which works on top of a bunch of things, such as Angular, and can essentially help you make that into a native mobile app, which is super cool. And Fireship. So the app I was creating was essentially a chatbot app. So you'd message a robot and the robot would message you back. And it was supposed to help teens with anxiety and depression just build up a little bit of resilience over time. And as such, we use the thing called Firebase Cloud Messaging, which essentially is just a messaging platform. One thing that links all summer research scholarships is a report. So because it is supposed to be research, at the end of your 10 weeks, you're supposed to write a report. The report is mainly a checkbox, honestly. Well, for mine, at least it was. I wrote I think it was 1, maybe 2 pages full of like images. So like a few hundred words max, just saying, yep, I promise I did stuff. And I promise it took me 40 hours a week for 10 weeks. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The report is really not too intimidating. But some research scholarships are really, really broad. Sometimes they are, you know, because helping in a chemistry lab, helping with whatever. Sometimes they're working with like a lot of people and working very closely with them. So really, they're very, very broad. And best thing to do is to talk to the lecturers and kind of get a feel of, I guess, their work style. There are some very, I guess, minor restrictions. You have to have a GPA of 6 or over for the standard applications, but honestly, I think if you email the lecturer, you can probably get away with a GPA decent amount lower than that. And yeah, one other thing is they are really, really good for leading on to future work at the university. Since then, I have got, I've continued that same work through a research assistant role, which is a very, very broad role that's essentially just given to everyone from like you've just stepped into uni to you've been a PhD for 5 years. And because of that, its pay range is from minimum wage up to about $36 an hour, depending on how much experience you have and I guess how nice your boss is. Yeah, so that's it's really good to get something like that. Also really great on the CV. It can kind of show you a range of skills. Yeah, sweet. I think that's pretty much it.
Cool, thank you. Okay, cool. So I guess we've kind of already talked about like how everyone landed their internships over the summer. But we'll try and like summarize it down. Not everything can be like talked about in depth. Like, unfortunately, I feel like CV is probably something we could spend a whole hour talking about by ourselves, like just its own event if we really wanted to. So we'll try and like, we won't be able to cover everything, but yeah, let's try go through a large chunk of it. Cool. So where and when to look. Summer of Tech is like very popular, I would say, among New Zealand companies. Basically, they are an organization that started out in Wellington, and then they kind of moved out into Auckland, and I think more recently into like Christchurch. Basically, if you are a New Zealand company, you can go up to them and be like, hey, I want an intern or a graduate. And you can host, or you can like advertise your internship through them, and they will have they have a process. So there's a meet and greet where you have the opportunity to meet with them on Summer of Tech's platform. It used to be in person. Unfortunately, it like has been online for the last 2 years, but it's an opportunity to like get to know them. And yeah, they're all paid, by the way. That's like the rule, is that all the interns, like all the internships must be paid internships. You can't show an unpaid internship. I believe they even have like a specific living wage that they advertise that you have to meet. Outside of that, direct to overseas companies. So like overseas companies don't have such a program, right? They don't have like Summer of Australia or whatever. You have to apply to them directly, but all of them will generally have their own application processes. Basically, so like yeah, so like Atlassian, you have to go on their website. There's like a careers page, and you apply. Google also similarly has a jobs page where you can apply. Basically, every Australian company has a jobs page where you can apply. If it's like outside of Australia, like Jane Street, for example, I think is based in Hong Kong. Not 100% sure, but like they also have a site where you can apply. You have to do them directly. Yeah, but then also for New Zealand companies, consider like sending them a direct email as well, is what I like to always tell people. MSA, so MSA is generally considered unpaid. And that is because they only require the companies to give a 2K gift. Actually, I think the 2K gift is given by MSA themselves, but it's a 2K gift. It might have changed since like a few years ago when I was part of it. But basically it's a gift. And if the company wishes to pay for the remaining, like they actually want to pay you a living wage, then that's up to them. But if you give the opportunity for a company not to pay, chances are a lot of the time they won't pay. But if they do pay, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, MSA is quite a bit more like, they have these tons of phases where you have to do assignments and stuff. But at least last year, generally everyone who finished all the phases did get an internship. But yeah, uni-based jobs. So Etienne went through a lot of these. Basically, most of them are summer research scholarships. They're the most accessible. You get 6.5K untaxed. So that is like at least minimum wage, might be a tiny bit more. You don't have to pay tax on them because I believe it's considered like a scholarship or a grant or whatever. But that's like always available. Plus it is worth 400 hours max for engineering students. So if you're an engineering student who has to get their 800 hours in, then this would be essentially one summer, right? So definitely consider it. Research assistants, I'm assuming this giant variation in money and like in wage is due to their qualifications. So I can't guarantee everyone will get $36 an hour. I think that's probably for like, I don't know, PhD students or something. But it is like oftentimes the SRS can potentially lead on to a research assistance thing, or like, yeah, those are available. Looking for job ads on LinkedIn, C-Days notifications, and uni association sponsors. So like LinkedIn, they have a jobs page. I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever, actually the big companies do advertise on there, but like I don't see a lot of small companies advertising on there for like internships, but you should definitely just like keep an eye out. CEDAS is there to get students jobs, right? That's the whole shtick. So like definitely like keep an eye out on their page. And uni association sponsors. So our sponsor is Google, right? Apply to Google. But other companies sponsor other clubs because they want interns, right? Those companies are looking for interns. That's why they are sponsoring. They're not going to give out like thousands of dollars in sponsorships to a club that will not be that they don't care about having interns from. It's like an advertising thing for them. So definitely reach out to those sponsors. Generally, if you ask the club how to apply or like how the company takes applications, the club should probably know. Generally, it's like an agreement or something, but yeah, up to them. Also, it's never too early to start searching. So I know I'm like keeping an eye on the chat, and some people were asking when should we like start applying? When is it too late? I think earlier is better. For example, Serato is a New Zealand company. They make like DJ music software. They opened up like last year super early, like semester 1. Yeah, May is what Matt's saying. They closed May, right? Or was it opened up? Anyway, semester 1, it was super early. They closed May. Okay, yeah. Like a lot of companies do, if they have the foresight, they will open early and unfortunately close early. So just keep an eye out. Yeah. Cool. So the application process, we kind of went over it. Research the company before you apply. This is mostly to tailor certain like parts of like your CV or your, like if you have to write a cover letter, then maybe that. But also it's important, like as Etienne mentioned, maybe not do it like 5 minutes before, but like he assumed it was like React, which was a pretty good assumption. Researching the company is pretty good. Like I remember for Atlassian, it was like Java. I saw they had a lot of Java job opportunities on their page. So I'm like, okay, they must use Java, right? They're not going to employ Java people because like to like teach them some other language. So I like dropped in when I was talking to the recruiter about Java and like Kotlin and some other like keywords I heard. There may be a technical test. It's more done for overseas, like Australian companies where they make you do a hacker rank or leak code. You should consider practicing these if you are aiming for those. But keep in mind that New Zealand companies also have these types of questions. I remember getting these types of questions, but like as a take-home email test where they trust you to do it within like an hour or something, but they don't actually tell you, or they don't time you. But yeah, New Zealand ones are way more chill, I found, but they do have those. So like consider practicing anyway, even if you aren't aiming for Australia, but it's not as big of an issue. Cool. So a technical interview, that's just solving a coding problem, or for me, it was like a web server systems design problem. General behavioral interviews are common, like for like every company, right? They want to see if you're a good fit, is what all the recruiters like to say. Basically, study the STAR format. So situation, task, action, response, or something. I'm not 100% sure if I did that correctly. Anyway, there is a STAR format. You should Google it. It's great for preparing your responses to make sure that you kind of follow the whole story and like don't waffle. Also, interviews may ask about your past projects. So like keep at least one project you're kind of proud of, or like you have a story around, or like you just like talking about. It could be something you're passionate about, or just like something that's technically good, like technically as in you put a lot of effort into it and like it's very impressive. Or like, yeah, just past projects are good to have on hand, but I don't think they actually look into your past projects themselves, like on GitHub or anything. Be prepared to talk about yourself and your values. So some companies really love their values. Atlassian is one of those companies. You should talk about yourself and like your values, and oftentimes kind of mix your values with their values, or like relate them to like, you know, try to land that job. But yeah, just be prepared to talk about yourself. You will have to. Prepare your CV well. So we don't have time to go too deep into CVs because again, it is 1 whole hour like worth of content. And a lot of other clubs / like university also provides like CV workshops and stuff. But if you do want help with that, we have a Tech Clubs Discord server. There is a career discussion channel, which you can post in, hey, I need help with my CV, or hey, I need help with, I don't know, should I apply to this? Should I apply to that? That's what that channel is there for. Or you could probably also message in the GDSC general channel. Cool. Okay, so this is Beverly and I's CV. Now, when you see this, it's a lot of word salad and it looks very impressive. But keep in mind, we're part fours, right? We've like, we're looking for full-time jobs and we've like been through all this shit. Most of you guys, from what I can see from the demographic, you're like first years, you will not have any of this, right? And I didn't have any of this in my first years. I had no work experience before university. I had no club experience. I had like some personal projects that I did over the summer kind of hastily. And I had like one achievement, which was done in high school. It was like, I had to, so right now I'm like learning to cut stuff out, but like before I've been learning to like fill stuff in with like bullshit, or like, not bullshit, but like make something seem more wordier than it is. And while I can't be sure if that's the same case with Beverly, I'm pretty sure it's similar. Cool. So summary, each internship will have a different working environment depending on the company structure and culture. Start looking early for the most opportunities, and then the application process varies quite a bit. I think the easiest way to figure out like what the application process is by asking someone who's been in your shoes. Now that's going to be hard, right? If you don't know anyone in your older years, but for example, we do have a Discord server, so you could always like perhaps message in there. Yeah, they're probably the best ones to know like how that process will work, because some recruiters do like sharing the whole story, but like some are kind of we'll get there when we get there kind of deal. So yeah, cool. So I've been like sprinting through that because we do want to give away stuff. So this is everyone who clicked going on the Facebook, I think. Rachel, could you take over?
Yeah, okay. Just want to say thank you, first of all, to our speakers, Hiru, Beverly, and Etienne. Really appreciate you guys talking. I know you've been waiting for this. So we've got four names we've randomly drawn out from the Facebook event. If you are here, please just pipe up in the chat or unmute yourself. We want to make sure that you're here. If you don't make yourself known, we will give it away to the next person on the list. So first up, we have Tim Moon. We've got Uday Siddhapur, Peter Yoon, and Tai Akaya. If you can just pipe up in the chat or unmute yourself now, that would be great. Cool, so we are waiting on Tim Moon, are you here? And Tai Akaya? Okay, is Tai here? We've got everyone except Tai.
For those who are here, could you send in your email to, I don't know, Beverly, could you take over for that? So send it to Beverly.
Yep, just send it all to me.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like Tai's not here. So next on the list is Kwang Huang. I think you're here. Yep, I can see you in the chat. Cool, so that's all four of our winners. Thank you.
Cool, we'll have our Q&A session. I hope the Q&A session reset from last time. It did. All right. Oh, yeah, wait, what? Anyway. If you have questions, feel free to put them in here. I know the questions have been answered pretty easily, or like pretty quickly in the chat. But like, if you do have questions that you want to ask me, Beverly, Etienne, maybe it's like special questions about our time at the companies or like something specific, feel free to like, this is the time. If not, I don't know, we can leave, I guess. I'm always available in the Discord server though. I'm very chatty on there. So if you ever do need me, you can always ask me from in there. Oh, yes. Good. Yeah, I will post the link. Good idea. Cool. Beverly, I don't know if you're looking in the
Hello.
chat,
Yeah.
but what language would you recommend be revised for a Google internship?
I think the interviews are all language agnostic, so you get to choose whichever language you want. They're looking for problem solving skills, not what languages you know, because you can learn any language you want, but you can't. But problem solving skills is like harder to learn than a programming language. So you can learn anything from like, you can do anything from like Python, Java, C++, C#, any of those. Yeah, or JavaScript if you want. It really doesn't matter.
Another question I got, also just for Atlassian, the whole interview process is also generally language agnostic. So like we barely use Python, but they were happy for me to use Python for like my whole thing. In terms of like job stuff, I guess they do like if you're doing backend, then Java is probably a good bet. Kotlin as well. Python is used a tiny bit. Go as well. And then for like front end, React and JavaScript are like king. So yeah, that was pretty, yeah, like they won't care for the interview process, but maybe for like your, like if they're trying to figure out what thing to put you in and they can't figure it out, it might be because you don't know certain languages. But honestly, like a recruiter put one of my friends in Atlassian into a role, into like a language she never knew what to do with. So like they don't care as much as maybe they should. But it's self-learning, so it'll be fine. Let's see. There's multiple places where messages are being sent. So I'm like, okay, first, Bob asks, congrats on your internship. What would you say is a challenge you had to overcome during your internship? Damn, Bob. I don't know. Oh God, I'm being interviewed, aren't I? This is an interview question. All right. A challenge I had to overcome was that I broke production before Christmas, and it was fixed on Christmas Eve by my teammate. Basically, I did a bad thing. Not a bad thing on purpose, but like I broke stuff and then no one was able to figure out, like no one saw that there was a problem until customers started complaining. Thankfully, if you're in a good company, they'll never blame you because they'll blame like the process in which that code was led into production and the fact that it wasn't detected. But like that was very scary. And what you do is at least like this is company policy, but like you have to make a meeting and then get everyone who like detected the error, who like had to deal with the angry customer, get them all in and like talk about how we'll fix this going forward. And like no blame was ever put on me. That's probably the most challenging part I had in that internship. Yeah. Do any of you have a challenge you want to talk about? Nope. Cool. Actually, okay. Ahmed asks, how do you manage your time wisely to do all of these things, prepping for interviews, etc., alongside part 3 uni, clubs, etc.? Yeah, does anyone want to answer that? Guys, like, okay, for me, I'd like.
Sorry, I'm coordinating
Oh,
DMs
right.
on the email. Sorry.
Okay, all good.
What was the question?
How do you manage your time between prepping for interviews along part 3 uni, clubs? I'm assuming personal projects and like learning stuff as well, because unfortunately uni doesn't teach you stuff as quickly as it should.
Honestly, I just spend like 80 hours a week working on uni stuff. And
80?
I don't know, probably more. I don't know.
80.
It's like I'm always at my computer doing uni stuff. It's really bad.
Damn.
I just spend a lot of time doing other stuff. So I don't know. I probably need to manage my time better. But yeah, in terms of for my interviews, I didn't actually prepare much for them. I did a few LeetCode questions, and I also attended a lot of events on like career events. So like I knew what was gonna happen, and based on like other people, what other people have told me. Yeah.
Damn. I like. Oh, I'm drowning in work right now, but that's because I took part-time. Don't take part-time if you want an easy club life or like uni life. Not worth it. Hang on, I'm like trying to manage multiple. Okay. By the way, if you do ask a question in like the Google stuff, the Google slides, feel free to upvote stuff because I don't know which one is the most relevant to you guys. Someone asked what was the success rate like for part twos? That's probably going to be hard to say. I'm assuming you're an software engineering student. Like honestly, a lot of my friends got internships. Almost all, but more like one got paid internships. Oh yeah, but like even if you don't, like I know people who didn't get an internship over the summer of their part two, and it was fine. Like the world wasn't going to end. Engineering New Zealand, if you like have said that you don't have to do 800 hours for certain years because of COVID, you only have to do 400 hours. So that's awesome. But also like I know people who went from no internship or work experience at all into like a big Aussie company. So it's not like the be all end all. Yep. Cool.
Sorry, can I just add to that as well? Sorry, I don't have a video cam.
Yep.
I know
That's
it's the
all
original speaker, but yeah, so I was someone who's sort of coming into uni, didn't really have a lot of experience coding. Like I did like a small course in high school, but not that experience basically. But the advice that I'd give is that it kind of goes into a little bit with what you're talking about managing your time, but I know we've like preached, hey, personal projects are a good way to sort of like skill up and sort of learn languages, etc. And they look really good on your CV and stuff. But I didn't actually have time to sort of do personal projects in like my second year. Like uni is busy enough and like club stuff on top of that, so I didn't actually have time personally. And so I basically just marketed what like a project I did in like a uni paper, and sort of had it on my CV. Brought up the highlights of it, like what sort of parts that stand out. So things like it was Java, it was sort of like done as like a team thing. It did this, and like tried to like reference the technologies and just market it to look good and everything. One of the reasons why personal projects are encouraged more is because it helps show that like you've taken initiative to actually go out and learn something. But when you're sort of like balancing uni and there's like a lot of other time considerations and everything like that, like having a project up there still helps a lot. So if it's uni one, the main sort of I guess concern with uni ones is that it could be like lots of people have the same project and then it won't stand out as much. But a project is better than no project. So I definitely still recommend if you are concerned about time and stuff and like balancing personal projects, it's not the end of the world to use a uni project either. And yeah, just like keep at it. It can be demoralizing when you apply to companies and then you don't sort of hear anything. Like my second year, I don't think I didn't get an internship, but I was fortunate to get a research assistant role at the very end, like after exams. But I was pretty demoralized after like not getting anything. It happens. Everyone's applying at once. It is stressful, but you just got to keep trying and try your best and everything. And it's not the end of the world if you don't get an internship or you don't get sort of like a role. But don't let it just like end there. Like work on yourself over the summer. Like even if you're sort of doing part-time somewhere else, like keep working on your skills, like do a personal project in it. It's like don't let it like define you. We've had like a friend who was unfortunate, couldn't get like a internship in second year, but they worked on like sort of themselves over the summer and then got like an Australian one for this year. So it's like it's not the end of the world. It is hard, but like still work at it and try it when you can.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. I think like especially the class project things, if you get the opportunity to take papers such as I think the engineering equivalent's engineering 750, but comp sci 345, you get big class projects there that are like team projects, and that is for all intents and purposes essentially like a personal project when a recruiter sees it, because often classes don't really have the like long projects for you to work on. But if there's anything that like spans multiple weeks or anything like that, it's really, really great for recruiters. Yeah, and it also, you know, kills two birds with one stone. You get to do your uni work and you get like a really good project. Really great way to time manage.
Also, if you're a part two, if you do SoftEng 206, I think it's 206, you get a pretty cool project out of that as well, which you can use.
That
Yeah,
was one I used.
yeah, me too.
But yeah, so projects aren't the end of the world. It's just that they are good if you can, because it's the chance to learn stuff outside of university and everything, and often useful stuff.
I've got an example of kind of a backward way of doing it, but I managed to get an internship through SJS in my local town, which was actually as a health and safety intern role because they were backlogged, and I've ended up doing text things for them instead now. So you never know where it might lead.
Is that the student job search like site?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I used that like first year, but I couldn't really find much, but that's really cool. Or it could be because it's like,
It was quite helpful that it was a local town
yeah,
rather than, you know, Auckland. But
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that when I use student job search, I didn't get any responses at all, like nothing. And a lot of companies just leave their like applications open up there when they've already hired people, or at least in Auckland.
I mean,
So-
I'd still apply though.
Yeah, still apply. Like it doesn't hurt, but just be
Apply to everything.
yeah, just be
Even
prepared
if-
to not get a response.
Yeah.
Even if they say they're looking for like penultimate, I would just apply. I know some places that have said we're only looking for penultimates, and then they hired non-penultimates. So
Yeah. Just some other things, because I see a lot of people like looking just through the chats. Sorry, these aren't like direct answers to questions. But a lot of people sort of do seem stressed about sort of the time balancing aspect. So first of all, I just wanted to say like, yes, sometimes we say like, hey, uni courses like maybe aren't the most useful, but they are. Like there's a reason you're paying to these courses and everything. They do help in terms of like providing sort of like introductions to a lot of these sort of concepts and sort of different things. So for one, you're sort of paying for uni, so do try to do uni. Don't like let your courses or grades like fail because you're trying to do these personal projects and you overwhelm yourself. Honestly, having like a healthy balance, so don't stress too much, especially if you're in like your first year or second year. There is still time. Everything will work out. It'll be okay. So don't stress about the projects too much. I know we did hawk on about it, but use your uni ones if you have to. And if you've got time over summer or something, like if you're doing part-time, I saw someone say like somewhere in there, like, should I quit my part-time work to do like a personal project? Probably not, especially if like the part-time work is like helping to pay for things like in your life. The benefits of personal projects is they do sort of help stand out, but it's more about like teaching you things that can look good on your CV. If you can make your CV look good without like doing that, then you're fine as well. Yeah, I'm just kind of like
no, I agree. Like
seeking out random ideas.
a lot of people don't want to put their personal like their uni projects on. But like I know majority of my friends put like uni projects on and make it sound like a personal project. Like just don't put in, I don't know, SoftEng 206 or CompSci 2 something. Like don't put in the name of the course and don't say it's for a course. Just like say, yeah, this is the project, and like go more in depth into like just what technologies you use for it and stuff.
Yeah, I saw some people sort of talk about like, are YouTubes or like code along projects okay, or like should you not have those sort of things? As long as I think that you can talk about it and sort of like actually show what you've learned and actually feel like you've learned something from it, like I think it's fine to include sort of thing. Maybe don't do like the most generic like coding YouTube project ever or something, because once again it is nice to stand out in some regards, but as long as you can sort of like talk about the skills that you learned from it and actually feel like you have learned from it, like it's worth it sort of thing to include. Yeah, there's also a question about what do we major in. So of the speakers here, so Hiru, Beverly, and I, we're all sort of like part for our software engineering. Etienne, yours is a bit more unique. Do you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, I am in my fourth year of a Bachelor of Advanced Science Honors conjoined with design. Yeah, so not the software, I guess. just about the projects. For when I applied for my summer research scholarship, I didn't actually have a huge number of like big projects. I had a collection of really small ones that I'd kind of, been fiddling with since like high school. I'm like, yeah, this is a kind of cool thing that I spent half an hour on. But I had, I guess, three largest projects and one that I was currently working on. First one was my portfolio website. So portfolio websites are really good, firstly, to show the things you're interested in, and it's a CV. But through that, you can also kind of show your skills if you're wanting to go into web development. The next one was a class project for Computer Science 399 because of, not going to go into it, but a bunch of stuff I actually took that in my second year, in first sem second year. And that was a really great opportunity to get a project done. And I can see it here on my GitHub, and it's not entitled 399 dash what it doesn't look really like a class project. It just looks like I worked together with 5 other people on a project, and that's good. And my and my last ones were just a unpaid startup experience, which wasn't great, but it did, I think, give me a little bit of an edge just in the experience that it provided, and that if I hadn't had that, I would be just a little bit behind.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Also, just like the whole degree thing, I think the question was what degrees were we, but like at Atlassian, we had like a New Zealand intern channel, and out of those people, I believe I forgot what it like the term was. It was like a data science like business analysis thing. They like helped use algorithms to determine which things like popular and stuff. That was an Eng-Sci student at University of Auckland actually. And then also there was like an APM, so an associate product manager, and that person was doing soft eng, but he was more doing with a conjoint with commerce, and I think the commerce conjoint was the one that helped him get that job. So like there are like different, we kind of focus on like dev stuff because we are the Google Developer Student Club, but there are like things that have a similar-ish process to a dev internship, but like at the same companies, but with a slightly different like subject area. So like data science or like product management.
Yeah.
At Google, I think there were four New Zealand interns. And 3 of us, I know 3 of us were part 3 software. The other one, I'm not sure. And then like all the other 60 interns were from Australia. So, but yeah, Google also has like not just SWE and STEP interns, they also have business interns, IT interns, and I think 1 TPM intern. Yeah, so there's like a range out there. If you're into business, you can apply for the business one.
Yeah. Another question that I think I did see pop up a little bit, and it's like for people who feel like they're disadvantaged or like sort of like already sort of lost behind the starting line, etc. Try not to compare yourself to others. It'll just make you feel bad. I know probably when you saw the CVs of these 2 amazing people, like when they presented them before and they seem like really amazing, as they said, they're part 4s, they've gone through this a lot. So tips that I would give is do work really hard on your sort of CV. Your CV is basically the foot in the door to all these places. A little tip that I got when I came from like high school, I had a really bland one. Bland CVs aren't like the worst, but a little tip that I got from like a senior was just like spice it up a little bit, maybe have some like color in there, make it look just a little bit nice to look at. Because if you think about these employers, they've gone through like CV after CV after CV, especially since there's like templates that are sort of around out there of like the very sort of like standard styles. It's just the same thing after the same thing. Having a little bit of variation is quite nice, and it like helps you to stand out a little bit more. And they pay attention, like, oh, look at this, it's actually got color. And saying that, don't just do like an entire rainbow one. Don't make it distracting. So a little tip that I personally give that I think helped me from getting my internship this year was basically revamping my CV to show off as many sort of skills that I got from like my time at university. So as I said, I do a lot of personal projects. So this was just marketing one of my uni projects well, and sort of just talking about the sort of research role I did last year. and the sort of club experiences that I had. Because also the other thing is that sometimes these companies are looking for good fits in their team. Like they're confident they can actually teach you the sort of skills, the stack required, but they want to make sure that they get the right fit for their team. So don't forget to like miss out on like extracurricular things if you do take part in those sort of stuff. They also help make you stand out as like a good candidate, especially like if you show you like your willingness to learn and sort of just like do what you can when you're on the job. But yeah, try not to compare yourself to others. It will make you feel bad. Like you should only be sort of competing with yourself. Work on these things to make yourself seem better, and the results will show after that and everything. So yeah.
Is it worth putting clubs or committees you did at high school on the CV?
I think it depends.
Yeah, it really does depend.
No, you go.
I think of it, so personally, I'll let Etienne go after me, but it depends on the sort of scale of the club and what it's sort of like involved. If you can sort of like talk about like meaningful experiences from that, especially if you're in like your first or second year maybe, but after that, I would try to sort of keep things as recent as possible on your CV, because those are the ones that kind of like mean more to like reviewers and sort of stuff like that. Etienne?
Yeah. I think it's essentially depending on how recent it is and your other experience. One of the big things is like recruiters are going to go through, especially at like large companies, are going to go through hundreds of just different CVs. So if you have like 3 pages of, yeah, well, when I was in year 9, I did an open entry choir and I was like 8 rows back. They don't care. Like they really don't. But if you're going for like, I guess a smaller company, that kind of stuff, and they're wanting to know more about your personality and that kind of stuff, then it might be good to put in. But I think it essentially just boils down to if you try restrict it to 1, maybe 2 pages for your CV, everyone's got slightly different advice on that and slightly different guidelines, but that's I guess, rough rule. If you have that on, and as you like slowly progress through uni, slowly get more skills, more projects, more education, that you can kind of slowly roll that kind of stuff off your CV, just as it becomes like older. I'd probably say that's how I did it. Like I've got, I don't know how many versions of my CV, I think something like 70 or something, just with small iterations and small tweaks, and saying, oh, I got this unpaid opportunity, I can like now remove robotics club from high school or something like that, and slowly reducing those sections.
Yeah, I agree. Same vibe. I was a programming tutor or something in high school. I needed stuff to fill in my CV. I didn't want like a half blank page, so it was good. But then once maybe I like started doing an actual like uni club, and I didn't have space for my high school stuff, it kind of slowly just disappeared off that. So like, if you don't have anything else to put on, then yes. And like, especially if you like trying to show like a personality, then sure. If you like are struggling for space, then like that should be like something you can cut, because like high school stuff isn't that relevant. But like if you need to fill space, then I would highly recommend filling the space with like, if you like, yeah, with high school stuff, especially for like first years and like second years.
I actually found my CVs. I've got a stack of them. This was before I moved into all digital. But you can see that this version, which was, I think, around first year, one of the things I had was leadership positions, which was, like I was the captain of robotics, or that kind of stuff. I did peer support and that kind of stuff at high school. But since that's become less relevant, I've kind of moved it off,
Also, how important is like machine readability for your CV? Like tossing up between making the CV look interesting and making it readable by the machine.
I mean, first, don't use JPEGs or like PNGs. Please use PDFs.
Yeah.
In terms of like prettiness, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure how those work on the like inside. If you go on Atlassian's page, they use like lever.co as their like website, and like if you submit your CV, it'll autofill the rest of your stuff. I've never had a problem with that. I'm not 100% sure what you intend on like doing to your CV to like make it not readable to a like machine. I think what it does is it takes all the text out of your PDF and it runs some kind of, I'm guessing regex, maybe some fancy algorithm over it. I wouldn't worry too much. I'd probably worry more about like readability to a person. If, because like a pretty one is good, but then too pretty might become like what's the word? Too much stimulus. Like they want to read information and not like, I don't know, flowers or robots on your resume. So like I'd probably worry more about like how clean it looks to a recruiter rather than the machine side of things. Yeah. I've never actually thought about that.
It's just, I think CDIS has a like CV checker where it
Oh.
goes through it and like checks whether it's readable. Just throwing it out there.
Interesting.
Yeah, the few that I've made using Canva, yeah, they weren't all that readable, but they were fun. I've only used them for like smaller companies that I know there will be an actual person looking at it and not a robot. So.
Yeah.
Microsoft Word has a lot of good CV templates if you're concerned about readability, because those ones are pretty readable as well. I made mine with Microsoft Word and one of those templates. You can always just like edit the template as well to make it your own. So
Would you be able to send the CV readability CDES link in the chat?
I can try to figure it. I think it's on, I think it's my CDIS plus.
So Amisha says, perhaps this is it worth it to put your part-time jobs in your CV even if it's not relevant to software tech? I haven't had a part-time job. Beverly, have you?
I have. I worked at Mac's back in year 13, but that stayed on my CV for a very short amount of time until I got other stuff. But I'd say it depends, like same with the other question. If that's all you have, then yes, definitely put it on there. But if you have other stuff to do with software or yeah, if you have other stuff, then you could get rid of the part-time job. But I think once you get to maybe like third year or second or third year, it might be time to like retire the part-time job in there, unless you're currently working at it. Like, yeah.
I think
Another-
it's pretty good if if you haven't had a like tech job, even if you've just had a tech, if you've done like lots of tech projects, it's still good to have a job in there, just because it shows a few things that are relevant to, I guess, all jobs. Like it shows that you've got commitment and you can, like, consistently show up to work every day, etc., which is an underrated skill that I think employers are definitely on the lookout for. And it also shows that you're employable. You can like speak to people well enough to get a job, even if it's behind a computer, etc. So I had a job for a few years, firstly at Coffee Club, then I moved over to Briscoe's as a glorified box packer. Not exactly the most techie job, but that stayed on my CV for quite a few years.
Yeah, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'll just bring another tip. Very quick little tip. For tech companies, try to keep your CV to one page. It can be hard to like compress everything down to one page, but like anything more, and most tech companies just like throw it out. Like tech companies like just sort of seeing one page, especially at the sort of the point of our careers where we're at, where it's like this very start. So that's one thing I've heard from a lot of the reviewers. Keep it to one page. It's a lot of advice that got preached to us from like our seniors. And the reason it's that is because like at the state of our careers, we shouldn't really have more than one page. Like it tends to be like every 5 or like 7 years is kind of like maybe another page in terms of your career and stuff. So keep to one page. it just keeps it in. So it is also really good practice to really concise down as a sort of make everything very succinct and easy to read and understand.
Just for like some context, I know a recruiter who has like 1.7K things, 1.7K applications that she has to do herself, as far as I'm aware. Maybe she's getting a tiny bit of help, but a lot of that's herself. If you have 1.7K like people and you have to review majority of their CVs, then like you're not going to read a lot. But again, this is like in my like this is like a giant company that gets a lot of people. So obviously a small company won't care as much, but like yeah, like the recruiters for like bigger companies don't have time for like your random stuff like over one page, I would say. Where do you find smaller companies? So Summer of Tech is pretty good. They're like mid-sized, but they also have like startups as well. Like paid startups, because Summer of Tech is all paid. Other small companies, actually, do you know Etienne?
Yeah, so if you're going directly for, I guess, very specifically startups, then there's a few. There's places like the Hive in the North Shore. There is, what was this just over there? I entirely forgot the name. But yeah, they've Ice House. They've got like startups and they've got, I guess, kind of like scholarships for doing that kind of stuff. More unpaid kind of things. There's a lot of startups that go through Velocity, I think like 100 at the moment, that kind of stuff. And for, I think, generally smaller companies, it's kind of tough to actively go looking for them. It'll more just be like, oh yeah, I saw your app and I thought it was really, really cool. Or maybe you're on a website and you go Control-Shift-I, and in their console logs they've got, hey, we're looking for someone to employ, please apply here, which happens actually a lot more than you think. That kind of stuff. So I'm not sure where you can actively go looking, but generally you just kind of come across small companies, just generally.
In my experience, it happens on complete accident through some weird sequence of events.
Yeah.
And like usually if you get started at one company that has good connections, even like for me it's a small town, that kind of spiral into like another 3 jobs. So
yeah,
but that's very specific.
I guess just
awesome.
more general, that can be, sorry, that can be small companies, but also medium and large ones. There's tons of recruitment tools, Student Job Search or LinkedIn, tons of things on LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. So I guess general recruitment websites have quite a few small things.
I was gonna say also keep an eye out on all those emails that CDES sends you. They sometimes advertise job opportunities that companies have, and they might go through CDES to reach a whole bunch of uni students. And also Careers Expo is always a good one as well. There's a whole lot of companies that set up a stall there, and you go and talk to them. And that's just like good for building your connections and sending through your CVs, and maybe you could land a job through there as well. So I'm not sure when the Careers Expo is. I feel like it was early or mid last year, mid-year maybe. I don't know.
I think
It was when we were in person. So it was, I
Ah.
think it was semester 2, like the start of semester 2, I want to
Okay.
say. Another question as well. Someone just asked something for overseas internship. Yeah, overseas internships, should they pay to fly you out and everything? A lot of companies tend to help in relocation. Some may give like a bonus and you sort of find your own way. Others may just like outright pay for accommodation and stuff, but it does depend on the company and they'll tell you about that during the process.
I think most Aussie companies did offer their interns either like payment or like a relocation payment or like some accommodation option, right?
Yeah. It also
So
depends if
Canva,
in person
sorry.
is going ahead,
Yeah.
which we won't know till later.
Yeah, that was last year. We don't know about this year.
Definitely.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But last year, Canva pays for your accommodation. Sorry, they find accommodation for you and you go live there. And they also pay for your flights to Sydney and back.
Mhm.
Then Google also pays for your flights, and they give you a accommodation relocation stipend. So you have to go find your own accommodation, but they give you the money for it. And I believe Atlassian's the same, I think.
Atlassian doesn't pay for your flights, but they do give you a stipend. I think the stipend is less than Google's. But yeah, they do give you a stipend to like pay for your rent and stuff. I don't think it covers rent fully from what my calculations were, but it does cover like a big chunk, and you'd be making enough money for it to be worth it. Not like, just to be clear, you aren't making like bathe in dollar bills type like money, but like it's definitely, if you compared it to like working in New Zealand, that difference is probably enough for like that, plus your relocation is enough to cover your living costs, I reckon, to make it worth it.
But if it's work from home, you don't get the money at all, which is kind of sad, but oh well.
We get work from home budget. I think Google does as well, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you get a work from home budget.
And Canva?
If you're a graduate, yeah.
Right.
I think they said they'd like help reimburse like a specific disc model from like Kmart or something as well. But nah, it was all good. Another question was, how many LeetCode questions did you guys do? So I think all the interview practice that I did was done in like 2 weeks, and that was not a good like time balanced weeks for me. It was like a very busy time at uni, but it was also like, hey, I want to try my best for these internships. And I think during those 2 weeks, I went through like just over 20 LeetCode, but that was because it was my first time like doing any of that sort of practice. So I just like kind of grinded out 20 LeetCode questions those weeks. Majority of them were like, I started off with like easy for each topics. Actually, there's a really handy list. I can't remember what it's called. Hiru, do you know like the top 75 LeetCode questions or whatever? Oh, you are muted, Hiru. Sorry.
Thank you. It's called the Blind 75. Like, if you search Blind 75 LeetCode, you should be able to get it. It's a lot of, it's supposed to be like a good approximation of the type of questions you'll receive. Our club, GDSC, did do an event on this last year, where we used a lot of the questions from the Blind 75, and there are some solutions, but
Thanks,
I have to access Notion for that to show you the link, and I can't do that right now.
Yeah.
So,
and so thank you very much for linking that as well. So what I'm trying to say is, don't go ahead and do those 75. Basically, what I recommend is look through like some of the easy ones and sort of the common topics, and then like at least get up to medium. So don't worry about hard. Hard don't tend to come up. So I think the way I did it was that I went through maybe like two to three easy and then 2 to 3 medium for each of the main topics that tend to come through. So array was a good one. A lot of like interview questions do tend to be kind of like, can be abstracted into arrays. Dynamic programming is a really helpful one to do, because as Beverly said, Google do love the dynamic programming. Graph's quite a helpful one as well. They don't always ask graph questions because sometimes they're a bit harder to interview in, but they do come up. Like my Canva one resulted in like a sort of graph approach. But yeah, don't worry too much about like going through all of them. Like I never bothered going to like matrix or like the heap and everything, and I didn't do most of the tree ones and that sort of stuff. Like, because it's limited to 45 minutes like for these technical interviews, there's only so much they can really do, and there's a lot of other things that sort of happen in those interviews as well. So yeah, but if you're looking for a place to start with LeetCode questions, it's quite a nice place. It's like summarizing a lot of the topics that are asked and like breaking down like easy and sort of like medium ones. It's a good distillation.
Do you happen to know whether the STEP hiring process is any different from the SWE one for Google?
I didn't actually do STEP. I only did SWE. So
Okay.
I think they're very, very similar. That's what I think.
from what I understand, they're very similar, except STEP gets a bit like, what's the word? Like lower threshold. Like they get a pass for a lot of stuff.
So yeah, the threshold for passing the interview is lower than for SWE.
Yeah. And to regards what Tanish, sorry if I said that wrong, said, generally most Australian companies are penultimate only. So if your third year is your penultimate year, definitely. So you're doing software engineering, of course, sorry, that's what I mean. But yeah, try for New Zealand companies if you can, like second year or like earlier, if that's sort of when it is for you. So Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it still doesn't hurt to apply, but generally, since the Australian companies just get such a large volume of applications, they're a bit more sort of strict on the screening of like penultimate or not. At least that's what I've heard.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty like, it's a good like approximation. Generally, they won't have you, but I know some quantitative trading firms. So I can't remember the exact firm, but I know someone who got to some of like one of the final stages as part 2. I know 2 people actually for like 2 different, no, for one company that got to like the final-ish stages, but they didn't end up getting it. I don't know anyone who actually did get one as a part 2, like as like for a big Aussie company. But if you're already at that level for like interviews and stuff, then they might be a bit more open to it. But yeah, admittedly, I don't know anyone except for Google Step interns that have managed to do it in part 2.
Yeah.
Soft eng. If you're on comp sci, do it in part 2 because you'll have a 3-year degree in your penultimate then.
And that's another thing. I know I've sort of tried to answer this question before. Sorry, Hiru, this is a tangent to whoever's question we're answering as well. But just in regards to the people who did sort of say that they're overwhelmed or stressed with uni, do feel free to like reach out into the Discord, like the shared Discord channels. And if you're not comfortable maybe asking out in sort of one of the main channels, feel free to like look through. Wait, sorry, I just need to clarify to make sure I know the role title. Feel free to look to the GDSC exec. All of these people are basically very nice, very lovely. We're all humans. We've all been in the position that you're in. And if some of them can't answer, like they can definitely probably just like point towards some of us who are able to answer and help out. So if you do need help with anything, like just sort of advice or sort of stress about stuff, like we can try to provide some tips and sort of advice there. Otherwise, the career discussion is a great place, as Hiru mentioned before. There's lots of lovely people who've all got lovely opinions and sort of advice that they'd be happy to share. So yeah.
Should I sprint? Oh, sorry, go on.
So do you think companies are more interested in work experience, even if it's not like, say in the tech kind of industry, but not actual code experience, as opposed to actual personal projects?
What are you thinking in like that regard? Are you talking about like a no code
Kind of,
website maker?
yeah.
I think I would put that on as work experience, simply because some stuff you do have to like think about that a normal front-end intern like engineer would have to think about as well.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not like did you have to by any chance tune any CSS or something? Because you could always add that in.
Oh yeah.
I'd probably still put it on. But yeah, it depends on what else you have, right? So if you have
Is it worth like just trying to like play up UX design part of it?
Yes.
If you feel confident talking about that and like,
yeah,
and that I'd recommend it. Like try to avoid lying on a CV if possible, but if you feel like you're confident enough or you're like able to sort of get through it, like yeah, definitely include it.
Yeah, I think UX stuff is, I'm not a front-end engineer, but I do know a lot of the front-endy people that I worked with at Atlassian do have an eye for UX and UI. And that is like,
it's led to a lot of arguments.
Yeah, like it like as a back-end engineer, I can't do UX UI, and like that is the thing that sets front-end people apart from me. Like no joke. But yeah, like I'd probably put that in. And yeah, if you did think about UX UI, I'd probably talk about that.
Yeah, the product design interns at Canva with like one of them was like the biggest clown ever. I mean, they were very talented as well, but also they were just like they just made the best jokes ever. So very funny people from my experience. But yeah, I have to leave now. But
yeah, I will rush through the remaining questions. So yeah, thank you, Flynn. Oh, by the way, Flynn worked at Canva over the summer, but he also got an offer for Google, but he was too cool for Google, obviously.
Not the case. Not the case whatsoever.
So thank you for coming. I'll quickly sprint through a lot of these questions just because we don't have that much time.
Bye. Good luck.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Cool.
No, I didn't turn down Google. It just wasn't a good fit. Big difference. I also wasn't good enough.
You got the, okay. I'm not going to go into this.
Wait, I thought he didn't get the offer, but he almost did, but he rejected them
Oh,
before he finished the process.
right.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
sure,
sure.
sure. What was I saying? All right, personal projects, quality or quantity. I'd probably go have like 3 and like focus on the focus on the quality for the 3 is what I would do. And by quality, I mean try and broach a broad range of like stuff. So if you're doing like a web stack, you know, like a website, maybe add in a backend, I don't know, like an account system or some leaderboard or something. I'm not like, it depends on your front end, sure, but like try and like make each of your say 3 projects nice. And then obviously if you do have a ton of projects, you have like a portfolio website, then you can just show people to. Next. In order to appeal to employers, should you learn multiple languages at once or one in depth? I would focus more on personal projects over learning like, I don't know, Haskell, unless you're interested in Haskell. It's a fun functional programming language, but like I would like, yeah.
It's not about how many languages you know. It's all about how you think and how you solve problems. Knowing multiple languages does not mean that you have great problem solving skills, or I mean you can, like, that's still very, very impressive. But yeah, they're always looking for like problem solving skills, how you think, because you can learn a language quite easily if you know like the basics of software engineering.
Yeah, if you're like interested in learning a language, then consider just like learning the often used languages. So JavaScript is quite used, especially if you're front end. Java is used a lot in enterprise. I'm not a fan of Java, but I will use it if I must. Like, yeah, that's if you have to learn some languages, but I'd obviously, yeah, go like, what's the word? Focus more on other stuff instead of this. Okay, so what sort of personal projects should we think about doing? Honestly, every time I've helped someone make a personal project, it has been in a situation where I talk to them and ask them about what they're interested in and like what their hobbies are outside of programming, because it's easier to start a project which you're like willing to actually work on or like liked working about, and it's like better to talk about. So there's no good answer. I'm sorry.
We also did an event last year. I think it's on YouTube about personal projects.
Yep.
And like we had some people talk about what they did and how they thought of the idea and how they implemented everything. So that might be worth watching.
I agree.
2 tips about personal projects. If you like something, but you know someone's already like, if you really like D&D, but someone's already made a D&D character sheet app, it doesn't matter. This isn't like you trying to make the best personal, like a character sheet or whatever. This is just for you to learn skills and develop it. So even if someone's already done it, do it. The other thing is, if it's a bad idea, it doesn't matter. If it's something like really weird, like terrible idea hackathon style, where you know it's just absurd, it doesn't matter as well. Like even if it's not useful, it's showing your skills and all that kind of stuff. It's obviously ideal for you to have like a brilliant project that's used in thousands of things, but that's not realistic. So just create something that you can develop skills and show those skills to employers.
The easiest project I've ever had to talk about was my anime project, because it was like a dumb project, but like I can talk about it for days and like I could show I was passionate about it. So yeah, I wouldn't think about like big brain projects unless you do have one, then maybe consider it. Like big brain is in solving a real life problem, but like honestly, most people don't. So like just, you know, do something you're interested in. Doesn't have to be the best, it can just be your one, you know. So that's kind of similar to the backend one. For backend, honestly, the easiest way I found to do backend stuff is doing a front end thing and then making a backend for that. That's my personal opinion. Any tips for beginners going against all these experienced coders? If you're talking about like me, you won't be going against me. I'm like part 4, I'm graduated, I'm gone. Similarly, like a lot of people will generally be like the final years, sure, might be very smart, but like you won't be fighting with them. In terms of experienced coders, as in like in your year, like people who have been programming since they were in the womb, and once they came out, their first words were "Hello World." Like, honestly, it depends, but I'd probably say one, obviously put effort into like your studies and like just learning technologies. You'll have to do a lot of self-learning that they did for like years that you have to do within a much shorter time frame, but I think it's really doable. Like I was one of those people who were like programming in the womb, but I feel like a lot of my peers in my year have caught up to me by now in terms of like technical knowledge. I might have some weird niche knowledge, like no one can come against me when I talk about WebAssembly or like some niche, I don't know, yeah, some niche topic, right? But like they like in terms of general like knowledge on like how to make a web server, I think everyone is generally as like, or they might like have attained the same amount, or like on paper they're pretty much the same. And for that, the best way is also doing like club stuff or like leadership roles outside of just like programming. But yeah, like if you're trying to differentiate yourself against like people who are super technical and have like pages of personal projects, you're a human, so you can obviously have like, you can show your better qualities in other areas, but obviously focus on technical as well.
I think also at uni, it's like you'll meet one or two people who have been programming since they've been in the womb, and you'd be like, wow, everyone else is so much better than me. This is, you know, like how can I compete? And sure, there might be a few people who have who've been programming for ages, but that's like maybe 5% or whatever of the people max. So if you just entirely ignore them and you say, okay, I want to compete against the rest of my cohort, you know, you can beat out the 80% of the people in the cohort that have never done a personal project, have never really done many like class projects, or if they have, they're not like on their CV, and you know, aren't particularly interested in coding, and more than likely wouldn't even come to an event like this because they aren't thinking about how to progress their career and that kind of stuff. Then you'll be fine, because then you're competing against like the 80% that aren't coming to events and aren't doing that, rather than the 5% that are turning down Google.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of people see like those like super like genius 200 IQ people, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna be going against them, but chances are you probably aren't. Like it's very hard for people to see themselves as part of their cohort and not just from their like friends group, or like if you have like, I know a friend who surrounds themselves with really smart people in their older years, and they feel like they aren't smart at all, but like they ended up getting some pretty good internships and stuff. So like honestly, you're like, consider yourself as like part of your cohort of the people you'll be going against, and honestly stop thinking about those like 1 to 2 people that are like a spotlight. Yeah, okay, bye Jess. Is there anything else that we should talk about? We've done that. Projects from YouTube tutorials, like they sort of count. Don't say it's a tutorial. I'd probably also recommend considering doing one like actually yourself after you learn the knowledge from like that tutorial, but beggars can't be choosers. So if you do have to put a personal project down, then yeah, just don't say it's a tutorial. And that's the same as this. I think that's it, honestly, unless someone wants to pipe in with a question. But other than that, I think we are done. If you have more questions, please put it in the Discord. We will be around. Yep. Oh, also, Summer of Tech does need references for tech CVs. Summer of Tech requires it. A lot of companies honestly did not care if I didn't have a reference. They didn't ask me. One company did ask me. Other companies did not. I think it's like a varied thing, depending on, yeah. Summer of Tech does, and for that, I forgot who I put down. I think it was like some leader in like high school, and I like, yeah, that was fine. They didn't check, they didn't ask. Yes, this probably will be recorded. Cool, I think that's it. Sweet, we're done. You guys can go. I'm sorry we went so like our Q&A session was longer. Oh no, it's about as long as our actual talk. But thank you for sticking around. You guys didn't have to, and I appreciate that you did. Cool. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Oh, could someone stop like